and welcome to this edition of Wake and Bake News. And I'm your host, Shampoo VTA, Kelly Davis. And how are you? Today is Thursday. I took Wednesday off and relaxed and argued over, putting up blinds at Nana's house because it's just annoying. It's just the whole situation's annoying. So we ended up having a little stupid argument. But anyway, that's I was still gonna take a break yesterday because there just wasn't enough news. But I thought I would throw in, and it wasn't fun because I had this stupid argument. But then we had a nice dinner and stuff, and my son came over, and everything was fine. It's just stress. Uh, all new. My mother-in-law got all new windows in her house, so now we had to put up blinds in all the rooms, and that was not necessarily the most fun thing in the whole world to do, especially with her going, "They look crooked. They look crooked. You need to. I'll show you some of this."
There's where it ends. Okay, whatever. If it is off, it's a smidge off. Well, from here, it looks like it's about 2 inches off. Well, that could be because maybe the brackets. That's okay. That'll be fine.
So you could see that she gets up and down pretty good, and her knee's much better. So she got past all that, but now she's healthy enough to come and just drive us crazy. Especially my poor husband. I felt so bad for him. But you got to understand, the only person that he can really vent on is me. You know, because you can't get mad at a person that's 85 for being a pill about everything and making everything 10 times longer than it needs to be. I mean, it's not her fault. So it's it's a quiet, uncomfortable annoyance. So that was no fun dealing with that yesterday. And that was separate from me taking the time off. I had already told my husband I was going to take a day off since the news was slowing down. But today, the news has picked up again. And it looks like we've got another poll out, this time I believe by UCLA, that says that we've got 63.8% on our side for legalization. And that's like a huge poll right there. So they're saying 2/3 of California is now in favor of legalization. So let's take a look at that. I apologize. This is UC Berkeley Poll. Okay, on the issue of marijuana legalization, do you support or oppose the following statements about politics and public policy? Marijuana should be legal for adults to purchase and use recreationally, with government regulation similar to the regulation of alcohol. A sample size of 3,020 yielded support of 63.8%. Opposed 36.2. let's see, Democrat 73% in favor, Independent 62% in favor, and Republicans 47% in favor. The majority of people that are against it are apparently Republican. By income, less than 40,000 a year, 67%. 100,000 a year, I'm assuming, 63.3%, and 100,000, 92.2%. It's like 40,200 or 99.999. 999. All right. Ages 18 to 24, 74%. Ages 25 to 34, 71. Ages 35 to 44, 65%. Ages 45 to 64, 61%. And ages 65 plus, 57%. So old and Republican is the ones that we're dealing with here. By race and ethnicity, 57% of Asians are in favor, 71% of blacks, 69% Latinos, and 62% of whites. Less than high school education, 79.7% in favor. High school degree or equivalent, 66.2. Some college, 65.6. Bachelor's degree, 59.2. Advanced degree, 61.2. So apparently, the more money you have to lose in your career, the more you're against this. I am not for this because then there goes my bachelor's degree or my advanced degree. All right, by gender, support female 63.3%. That's huge, and male 65.1%. And the reason why that's huge is because during Prop 19, we did not have female support. And now it's almost completely on par with males. That's huge. So I'm going to show you a couple of cool things I got this weekend. I got this adorable, cheapy little grinder, which I put googly eyes on. Yes, hello. My name is Little Google Grinder. It's nice. It's got a keef catcher. I mean, for being, under $10 and tiny, at least it's got a screen. I put a washer in there because a dime was even too big for this thing. But I needed a little tiny grinder for my box, and that was just perfect. And then I glued the little googly eyes on there, give them personality. And I got one of these raw rollers, and I got to tell you that I love this. I love this thing. It came with extra, plastic sheet. So you have two of these. It's made apparently of hemp plastic. You see, it looks fibrous, because it's a natural plastic. So it actually has hemp involved in the plastic. I thought that was really cool. And it works like gangbusters. So I went and got, because the raw rolling papers aren't really my faves. I like the GCJs, frankly, to be honest with you. So I went back and got me another pack of these Jamaican rum, which I haven't had in a while. And some marshmallow and root beer. But I was not as excited about the root beer as I thought I'd be. We tried the root beer, and I was like, meh. Marshmallow, though, has such a nice smell. I like it when it actually has a nice smell to it. So we're just going to try this rolling machine out here. Let me grab my crutch papers. I thought about buying a glass crutch, but I decided no, I was going to go with the papers. Okay. So I had a dentist appointment this morning. I had to go and get a checkup 6 months after I had my root canal done and my crown put in, everything. They wanted to make sure I actually had something done after they did all that work. And so I went in and I had to wait a half an hour because, of course, he's working with another patient. That's not his fault or anything. But I got to sit there and watch his fish tank. It was like, Finding Nemo. And then I realized I was just having the good old time just sitting there watching a fish tank for like a half hour. And then, of course, I went in. It took 2 seconds. He just looked. He took an x-ray. He went, beautiful. And I went, thank you. And we shook hands and I left. But I had the nicest time sitting there looking at his fish tank. That was just so nice. And he had like, I think betas in there and goby. I can't remember all the fish's names. See, it has arrows right here on this side to show you which direction to roll in, right? So you're supposed to put your paper in like like this, I think. And then we're gonna roll it towards us, and the paper should be sucked underneath the weed and hopefully not backwards. We shall see if Kelly did it backwards. Sometimes, no, it looks good. Sometimes I do it backwards. Then I did have trouble licking it and pushing too hard and having the sticky part stick to the roller and rip the joint to pieces. So I learned, no, don't press it too hard together. Okay, so there, boop, boop. Ah ha 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 ha. Ah ha ha ha. Ah ha ha ha. Look at that. Look at that. Here, look at the crutch. See, not too shabby, Abby. Not too shabby. And then it's got the little rum bottles on it because it's Jamaican rum. Sorry, it's alcohol reference. At least it's not guns. I'm the alcohol reference I can live with. It's when it's fucking gun related. I don't like pipes that remind me of guns. 6-shooters I can kind of put up with. Grinders shaped like fucking 6-shooters and stuff. Why? Yeah. Why? Stop. It's like telling every liberal in the room, I dare you to take a hit out of this pipe that's shaped like an AK-47. Wait, let me get my camera for all my conservative friends so we can laugh at you. I also do not enjoy weed-themed knives. Knives with weed logos, weed on the blades, weed on the handles. Why? What has this got to do with weed? I am so proud of that. I did good. Okay. The next story is super annoying. Okay. I ended up like screaming. I mean, just yelling at the the computer. My husband's like, what? Ah! Because it's basically a town hall. Uh, they're doing a California wide town hall like on this show, and they're going to talk about, of course, all the initiatives, not just Proposition 64. But they invited a prosecutor and some representative for the police department that, of course, brought the litany of bullshit lies, and some guy that supposedly let me speak non-politically. And then he spews a bunch of stuff that seemed to me political. I don't know whose side he was on, but I was like, this sounds political to me. Yeah. Anyway, so there's points in this that are super aggravating, but I'm telling you, we have keys for each of these locks. Instead of them coming up with some crazy off-the-wall shit like, there's going to be Halloween candy that's marijuana laced, handed out at Halloween time. Instead of that bullshit going on, and we're like, wait a minute, I wouldn't even think I would have to come up with an argument for that because it sounds so crazy. But thank God, at least we have all the arguments for all the crazy that they've got. Because, I mean, think about it. Handing out Halloween candy, it was laced with marijuana, would cost you $1,000. What kind of idiot would do that? Luckiest neighborhood of kids ever, Crazy. So this is under 5 things to know about California. And I'm going to play for you what I recorded. And the mic was on, so my husband and I were talking while we were watching this. So you might hear some yelling and argumenting and me getting really pissed.
Welcome to our California Counts Town Hall from the historic Guild Theater in Sacramento. I'm Beth Ruyak from Capital Public Radio. Where did the U.S. movement to legalize marijuana begin? Most people agree it happened here in the Golden State. California, though, wasn't the first state to decriminalize cannabis. It was the first state to legalize medical marijuana, and that happened with the passage of Prop 215 in 1996. Legalizing weed recreationally, though, that's been a bigger challenge. Colorado has done it, Oregon too, Alaska, Washington, and the District of Columbia. Will California be next? Or will the state again say no, like voters did here in 2010 with the effort known as Prop 19? We're going to hear from voters in our audience and a panel of experts who are each involved in the cannabis community at various levels. First of all, though, I'd like to introduce my co-host here from KPCC, Southern California Public Radio, and the host of Air Talk, Mr. Larry Mantle.
Beth, great to be working with you. Thank you so much. Great to take part in these programs looking at the November election up and down the state. Well, let's begin with Prop 64 with Rich Maddich. He represents the 64 campaign. He's an attorney here in Sacramento. Rich, you're responsible for drafting the language of Prop 64. How would marijuana be treated differently under this than under the current Prop 215 medical marijuana standards?
Well, actually, we use the existing structure that the governor recently signed into law as the template for non-medical marijuana. Same regulatory agencies. We would control, regulate, tax marijuana under a very similar structure. We'd have some of the strongest protections for children in the nation. We ban advertising towards children. We ban the production of edibles, which could be appealing to children. We provide very robust regulatory provisions to provide regulators with the flexibility to adapt to non-medical marijuana. We tax non-medical marijuana, creating a revenue source to address things like remediation of environmental damage that has occurred due to illegal grows.
So you feel like it's comprehensive. There's not a lot left for the legislature to do if this passes?
We think this is the most comprehensive marijuana legalization measure in the nation, but it was important to us. It was critical. This is one of the lessons from the Blue Ribbon Commission. You still have to provide flexibility for the legislature to adjust things in the future. And so unlike a lot of initiatives, we provide that flexibility to the legislature. And frankly, we also provide complete local control on this issue as well. So local governments have flexibility as well.
All that said, when you talk about local control, you're dealing with police chiefs, you're dealing with law enforcement, and let me bring in Lauren Michaels, who is with the California Police Chiefs Association. She's with the No campaign. Lauren, Gallup polls back in 2011 were showing about 50% of Americans in favor of legalization of recreational marijuana. We're now closer to 60%. The number keeps rising. Why no?
Well, I think I agree. We see large public sentiment going towards legalization in favor, and we see those numbers. The question remains, how do you regulate and how do you legalize? We see the 60% for legalization in general, but when we get into the details of the initiative and ask voters, is this the way you want to legalize marijuana? You see those numbers shift. And it's our job to provide information to the voters about our concerns with this initiative and see if this is the way that they want to go.
You mean when it's drilled down to particular points where they have concerns?
Exactly.
That the 60% breaks down.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So can you give a specific example, something in 64 that you think is out of sync with the majority of Californians?
Sure. We look into one of the points in Prop 64 that says that someone who has a felony conviction for narcotics, whether it be sale or possession, cannot be denied a license on those grounds alone. And we ask voters, is this how you want to legalize marijuana?
Can I jump in there? It's actually not quite as broad as what Lauren described. We specifically say that a prior offense for anything involving children, trafficking in drugs, those are disqualifying. And with respect to how the licensing process works, there's no entitlement to a license under Prop 64, and that's the same with medical. And in fact, under medical, if you have a prior conviction for a substance-related offense, you can still get a license under medical at the discretion of the regulatory agency. So it's not that significant of a departure.
Can I just clarify, though, if someone had been arrested for selling even small quantities of marijuana, could they still get a license to sell?
Under the medical system or
No,
Prop
under the
64?
recreational.
Under Prop 64, that would not be
They
automatically
would not,
disqualified.
because that might disproportionately hit communities of color where people have supported themselves, sometimes with even small quantities of marijuana sales.
And in our extensive outreach with stakeholders, that was one of the concerns that we heard with precisely what happened under medical. So we did do it a little bit differently.
I'm going to ask our Sacramento County DA, Anne Marie Schubert, to jump in because when this part of the conversation started, you took a big breath and threw
Well,
your
I
hand
think
up.
that one thing that I disagree with Rich about is when he says it absolutely bans advertising to minors. That's actually not true, and that happened in court this weekend.
Yeah,
The
fuck
court
you.
authorized the
Lie!
ballot argument that it could, in fact, promote advertising to minors. That the language of the
Lies.
initiative, the ballot argument,
It's
that
against
it could,
federal
because
law.
we know that sometimes the states are left up to what the advertising is, and so that's a major concern.
It's against
Obviously, from
federal
my
law.
perspective, both as a parent and a prosecutor, is that, really, what is the good
See,
public
prosecute.
policy that's other than that?
Lie.
Well, I think
Now we
to respond
know.
to that, that's actually
Now we
what
know
the court
about
said
that.
was it was absolutely true in our statement. They did not change our statement with respect to the initiative bans advertisements directed to kids. So you can't market to kids. You can't
Except for
promote to
shows like
kids.
CSI and all
Nope.
those shows that kids watch.
Under federal law,
Kids watch
you
this.
cannot broadcast marijuana-related advertising on TV. The only way that happens is if federal law
Liars.
changes,
They're
or if somebody
liars.
violates federal law, and the
But
judge.
then this would be the law. If federal law changes, then these provisions of 64 would go into effect.
Because in the absence of having any provisions, forward-looking provisions in Prop 64, which mirror the alcohol prohibitions on when, or not prohibitions, but restrictions on when you can show alcohol ads, there wouldn't be any.
But the
provisions.
DA's point is correct, isn't it, that
No.
the only ban
Because
is on
the DA
kids-specific
just came out and
programming,
said they're
everything
not
else
Cartoons
would be
regulating.
fair
It's
game.
not gonna be
No, that's still not quite right. The audience, if under Prop 64, if federal law changed, then you could only have marijuana-related advertising on TV if the audience was 71.1% 21 and up.
Pause a moment. Joel,
And it was
you're in
legal
California.
federal-
Or, sorry, you're in
So
Colorado.
it's a
Joel
lie.
Warner is a journalist based in Denver. What's happening there with advertisement?
Nothing.
Well, I have to say, in general, we haven't seen that much advertising. We haven't seen the sky falling, as some people suggested after Colorado legalized marijuana. We haven't seen teen use increase. We haven't seen real serious issues
Yeah,
with
where's the next boogeyman
driving
we're
under
gonna
influence. But we
slay?
have seen
Just
complications.
show it to us.
There
Where's your
is
next
no question
marijuana boogeyman?
that
'Cause
things
we got this.
haven't changed in Colorado, ranging from we've seen corporate consolidation of a lot of the marijuana shops. We've seen worker concerns about not getting the protections they need. We've seen homeless shelters saying they're seeing more and more people coming to Colorado to either get jobs in the industry or use recreationally or medically. And of course, you have the issue of how do you regulate marijuana gummy bears? And then the final question is, I mean, everyone keeps looking at these studies a year or two out, seeing, oh, are we seeing more ER visits? But the issue is, what are we going to see 10 years, 20 years down the road? When the first generation that has grown up with legal marijuana, what are we going to see these long-term widespread social impacts? We don't know.
Where's the information saying that teen use isn't up or
Yeah.
some of these statistics? I would like to know because not only did you react, but Peter, heck, too. Peter?
Well,
Joel?
I'm not a specific expert in Colorado, but my understanding from national drug abuse statistics, Colorado has traditionally ranked very high for cannabis use. And if you look at the national survey data, and there's not been a significant drop since 2009 until now, for that matter, a significant increase. And in fact, in the last year, the Colorado Department of Health reported a very, very modest drop in teenage marijuana use. I would probably consider to be statistically insignificant. But this is a state where there was always a high level of cannabis use. And
What
there was-
didn't happen then is the reverse.
it didn't
Use
seem to
didn't
explode.
spike.
And obviously, you have a great deal of pot-savoring tourists who are coming into town. I mean, that's one real dimension of recreational marijuana that largely does not exist with medical marijuana. Right now in California, it's not legal to come in from another state and purchase medical marijuana. Some other states do have agreements where you can take your physician's recommendation or a card from another state. California does not. So the real dimension is are people coming for Disneyland and Yosemite going to be stopping at their dispensaries while they're here?
By the way, Peter Hecht, who is Sacramento Bee reporter who covers the marijuana industry. Let's hear from a listener who recorded this question. We'll take the answer from our panel.
My name is Kevin Rahm, and I live in Sacramento, California. And as a father, I'm concerned.
Yeah, so Proposition 64's first priority is protecting our children. It's of a top concern. It's a top concern of mine. I'm a mother. And there's a variety of protections for children that are written into this initiative. First is child-proof packaging, clear labeling, no advertising to children, packaging that can't be seen through, products cannot be focused on children. And it also goes deeper. It goes deeper into the social justice issues of, one of the most dangerous things about marijuana, it's a non-toxic drug. It's not going to kill our children like many pharmaceuticals and alcohol will. But one of the most dangerous things about it is that a child can be arrested and can be denied financial aid, and that denied the ability to go to college and better their lives. So it absolutely thinks about our children, our young children, and our future generations who are going to grow up in this state.
Well, I wanted to ask, though, because the language in this, doesn't it say that no agency can require anything unreasonably impracticable of the industry? And, I mean, couldn't that come into how something is packaged, how, yeah.
Well, I think a couple things. First of all, to go back to what types of child protections, to be responsive to the question, we absolutely prohibit the manufacture of edibles, and this is a lesson we actually learned from Colorado and other states, that can either be appealing to kids or could be easily confused with commercially made candies.
Couldn't
or other
any edible
non-marijuana.
though be appealing to kids?
No, I think that, the point is that it's either appealing to
then
kids
they gotta
or it
stop
could be easily
these
confused. Both types are actually
alcoholic
prohibited
drinks that are
from
so
being manufactured
cute
in
made
Prop
now.
64. The unreasonably impracticable language has to be read, I think, in light of the other provisions of the initiative, which say that is intended to ensure that the regulations allow for the establishment of a regulated market. They can't be so
Okay.
strict as to not have a regulated
We
market.
can
which
come
would
back to
defeat the
that
goal
point.
of-
D.A. Schubert, quick comment. We got about
My
20
quick comment
seconds.
is, if we're really about the top priorities, kids, then why are we allowing 97% THC content in marijuana in California?
All right,
How
we're
is that
coming
top
your way
priority?
from the Guild
What
Theater
are
in
you
Sacramento.
even
This is
talking about
California
right now?
Counts, a statewide program in which we're bringing together an audience here in our state's
Like, what is that
capital
even
to
talking
talk
about?
with our
Like
panel about
97.9
Proposition 64,
THC?
which
I
would
wish I
legalize
could find weed
recreational
like that.
marijuana right here in the
I love
Golden
how these
State. We'll be
prohibitionists
back with more
imagine
conversation
Godzilla
right
weed
after
that I've
this.
never encountered in my life that I would love to find. What is this magical Godzilla weed you speak of? Well, that
Welcome back
THC
to
is so much
California
higher
Counts,
today.
the pros and cons
Really?
of
Where?
legalizing
Please show
recreational
me.
marijuana. I'm Beth Bruriak of Capital Public Radio, here with Larry Mantle of KPCC Los Angeles. We're at the Guild Theater in Sacramento, and we're exploring Prop 64, which officially is the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, and it will be on the November ballot in California statewide. We left off with a rather provocative comment from the Sacramento County DA about the level of THC in marijuana. And I want to explore from different people on the panel about THC levels. Kimberly Carville, maybe I'll ask that question first of you, even though you're dealing with a medical dispensary. Talk about THC levels.
Well, absolutely. So within cannabis, there's a variety of different cannabinoids, which are the active ingredients in cannabis. THC is only one of them. And I think what you're talking about is a manufactured substance. So cannabis doesn't naturally grow up to 97% or 99% or whatever it was you said. That's actually used through a manufacturing process. And it is manufactured to take the active ingredients away from the plant matter as to help those ingest cannabis that don't want to smoke it. And also to be able to specifically find the exact milligrams and put a specific amount of milligrams. I think we're capping it at 10 milligrams per edible in Proposition 64. So that way patients know exactly how much is in there. So it's a matter of processing it, and we lab test it to find out the milligrams, but it's related to a percentage.
And is that per individual item sold, or could you have a candy bar, for example, that says it has 6 servings and have 60 milligrams total?
I think it's per serving size,
Rich?
but
So
Yes.
you have to hope that the person who's eating the candy bar has
It's not
restraint,
marine, yeah.
not to eat beyond the limit, right?
It's
no,
not
actually,
an
that
imbecile.
there is education
Let's
that's
talk
required.
about the serving
So
size
Of whom?
of alcohol.
Education for the consumers. So the people who are selling these
How about them
products,
40
I
ounces?
believe, are going to need to be educated. We do weekly education with our staff because every person has a different tolerance and is going to be able to use a different amount of cannabis. My personal dosage is 10 milligrams. However, my assistant, who's 100 pounds, her dosage is 100 milligrams. So every person is going to have a variety of a number of variables that is going to determine
Wait a
their
minute.
specific
That's
milligrams
where I
that
go.
they need.
Yes, and then there's this guy,
So
Freddie Pritchard,
absolutely, it is
and his
important
is like
to have
2,000
some
milligrams.
products.
It's
And
amazing.
have
That's-
labeled
yes, he
products,
doesn't
have
die
lab
from
tested
it.
products, so that we can use the correct amount for ourselves.
Kimberly, can I have Peter jump in here because you've spent enough time in Colorado, and Joel, you may weigh in on this as well. And someone walks in and walks out, and the regulation or the control stops at the door as it closes behind them.
Oh, no.
Well, the one good thing that
What?
you generally
I know,
get
what
with
the
the
fuck?
dispensary, particularly some of the better ones in California, and soon as it's going to be required, both
The
by
regulation
legislation
folds
signed
you
by
out to
Terry
your
Brown
car.
and as well as some of the
What do we
initiative
need to
is
do,
you're
follow
going to
them?
get, generally,
I have to
product
walk with
testing
you
for THC
and stay with you all day long and
unless,
Hold
unless
your
there's a
hand.
specific
Stuff is
ingredient,
gone.
cannabidiol or
Where's COVID?
CBD, as well as molds and pesticides and things like that. But when you're talking about THC, there is this sort of common mantra, particularly put out by some of the law enforcement industries, that marijuana is so much more potent. And on one level, that is true. And you have this very sophisticated plant breeding and so forth. But when you walk into a dispensary, it's particularly a medical marijuana dispensary, it's almost kind of a 31 flavors. So older people may not want really amped up stuff. You may get 10, 15% THC, which is toward the lower end. The highest end, the more regular marijuana, may be 27, 28, in extreme cases 29%.
The way you tell they're
I'm not really that familiar
Make
with
them close their
concentrates, but
eyes.
How often do you
Stoners
see
can't cross
97%?
their eyes
I don't
when
think we've
they're
ever seen
high.
97%,
Like,
but
really?
these marijuana concentrates or dabs are increasingly common. So if you go to a lot of these
That's
marijuana
just
shops in
wow
Denver and
bullshit
beyond,
right there.
more and more of the selection is away from the flower and more to these kind of sticky kind of dabs. And yes, it looks
What are you
kind of
doing?
bad. It looks almost like you're freebasing marijuana.
right.
To me, what's fascinating though is that hasn't been the big problem in Colorado. It has
What
been
the fuck
these
is
cookies
wrong
and
with these
candy bars.
people?
And that kind of goes to the fact that
I
you
mean,
can,
that was
you can stick
racist.
all these regulations
That
and
was
testing
racist.
onto these products, but the thing
That
is,
looks like
we don't have
freebasing
the
what
decades
black
of
people
social
do.
education that we have with
That
alcohol.
sounded real
Where
close to racist.
you know the difference between having one glass of wine with dinner and having 4 shots of Jim Beam at a bar. We don't know that as a society yet for marijuana. So when you go to one of these shops
You don't
and
know
the
that.
bartenders say, as they are trained to do,
The rest
have
of
one end of the
society
candy
knows
bar
that.
and
The
wait
rubes
2
don't
hours.
know that.
I mean,
Who is this
who does
idiot?
that, right? I mean, we're trying to put pharmaceutical concepts on something that we see as a pure just indulgence. And so it's hard for us to compute these things, even with all of the training and all the regulations.
D.A. Schubert, quick comment?
The quick comment is that one failure of this initiative is that there is no per se limit on
I love
writing
how she puts
with
in the
marijuana
word
in your system,
failure.
and that's a
It's
real
a
problem.
failure.
We'll
One
get to
One
that.
failure,
We'll get to
just
that
one
question
among
later.
many.
Let's hear from another
She's
one of
a
our
bullshit
listeners
artist.
who has another question for our panel.
Hi, my name is Chantal, and I'm
She's
from Burbank,
selling.
California. I'm wondering where the tax on marijuana money will go and how would it be used?
Schools.
Rich?
Well, 60% of back up. Actually, the first call on the tax revenues is to support the regulatory structure, to ensure that we have robust enforcement of the structure that we've put in place. We then actually devote a substantial amount of money, $3 million annually over 3 years, to the CHP and to law enforcement to develop protocols and standards to detect driving
Feed
under
the
the
monster.
influence, impaired driving. And we actually reached out and worked closely with the CHP on those provisions. And there are studies that say that a per se standard doesn't work. What you need more training, more officers to be able to detect impaired driving. It's about training, it's about protocols. There just isn't the technology because of the way THC metabolizes in a system to use a per se standard.
Can we quickly just define per se meaning a specific level of THC in the blood?
That's exactly right. So the step, kids who don't have after-school programs get into trouble with drugs. This is not a surprise. So we fund those types of programs. Youth homelessness is a problem often associated with all manner
That
of drug use. We
prosecutor
provide
doesn't
funding
care.
for
She's
those types
worried
of
about
programs.
Any
how
of this go to the general fund or all the
99%
specifically
THC
designated
plants
funds?
that
No, this goes
grow
for
in her
specific purposes. And this was
imagination.
another lesson that we learned from the Blue Ribbon Commission. We can't treat this like California's next gold rush. We have to be smart with how we use those revenues. So the second piece of this, after the youth education, prevention, and treatment, goes to environmental restoration and prevention from the harm that was caused by illegal grows. And then finally, the remaining 20%, which, by the way, the legislative analyst is an our number, says that this could generate up to $1 billion annually when fully implemented. So $200 million annually goes to local law enforcement for grants.
Joel, can I ask you how the
that
projections have
prosecutor is
compared
so
to the
worried about
realities in tax
THC
revenue
levels,
in Colorado?
not revenue,
I think
not
it has been
taxes,
more
not
than
regulation
projected.
and protections.
The issue is how long will these revenues last? As more states begin to legalize, is Colorado going to continue to see these increased revenues, or is it all going to spread out?
Yes,
And was there a
because the
concern in
world is
Colorado
still
about
prohibition.
the funding for the state being based on what's called a
You can have
sin
people
tax
coming here
and this
from
being
China.
a sin tax?
I think this concept of marijuana sin taxes is now being developed as we're seeing more states and more municipalities say, well, let's actually use some of this money to address homeless issues, or let's use some of this money to address communities who have been harmed unduly thanks to the war on drugs. Now we're starting to see this, like whether or not marijuana revenue should be used. And the argument is, yes, if you increase these taxes, is the price going to become so prohibitive to buy this stuff that folks are going to go back to the black market, and legalization becomes a moot point?
Use raised criminal justice system. Let's hear a question from one of our listeners along those lines.
Hi, my name is Cliff from North Hollywood. Has the criminalization of marijuana resulted in Californians being jailed? If so, how many people are currently in jail in California for crimes relating to marijuana use and possession? Would this new legislation put a stop to that? Also, what kind of effect will this new law have on Mexican drug cartels? Thanks for answering my question.
Sacramento County DA Anne-Marie Schubert, you want to answer?
I want to
Cliff's
tell you that
comment?
there's not a single person in prison for possession of marijuana. We don't put people in prison for possessing marijuana. You can ask the Department of Corrections. In Sacramento County, for anybody that wants to know, if you possess less than an ounce of marijuana, it's a $60 ticket. It's less than a ticket for speeding.
But for those who have larger quantities, with the presumption that they're probably looking to sell it,
we charge possession for sale when there's evidence they're selling. So it's not just
but
simple
not
possession,
just holding
but
of a large quantity.
Well, there may be other indications, whether they have scales, whether they have payo sheets, other things that would indicate that they're selling drugs.
Ask her how
So-
many people
Will a
have
change in
it
the law, though,
started
if
with a
64 is
marijuana
passed,
search and
prompt
turned
a
into
revisiting
now
of some
we have your
states
car
in
in
the
your
case
house
and
a whole bunch of other
resentencing, or
charges
perhaps
where the
a
drug
dropping of
dogs are
charges?
used to pry open
They're not
someone's
going to
life
be
so now you can
resentenced on
shop
possession of
for higher
marijuana because
charges.
nobody's in prison for possession of marijuana.
Singly.
That's
But
just not
you
the case.
use
People are
those
in prison
fucking drug
because they've
searches
either
as a
done a violent crime
doorway
with a bad
to get
record,
into people's
or they've
lives and their
sold drugs
credit
and they have a bad
cards
record.
and their fucking property.
Lauren, I know you want to get in here too, but Rich, jump in there.
Well, I would just point out that the Legislative Analyst Office, again, independent source, estimated that up to $10 million annually in saved law enforcement costs because of the decriminalization provisions in the initiative. So clearly,
not prison.
somebody's in jail, somebody's being tracked
That's
by
not true.
probation
That's
officers.
just not true.
Well, the legislative analyst says that it is true, and it's their job to provide true information to the
Maybe
voters.
for writing the
who
ticket.
tell that fucking lying bitch?
Maybe for writing the ticket.
Tell that
You were
fucking
listening
lying
to Rich
fucking
Maddox,
bitch!
who is an attorney and drafted
Shut
much of
up,
the language
bitch!
in Prop 64. Also discussing that point with him was Sacramento County District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert. I would like Lauren Michaels' voice in this conversation representing the Police Chiefs Association. And not only on this point, but going back to that issue of driving under the influence too.
Sure. Well, let's start with this point. what we've seen in other states that have decriminalized and commercialized
here we
marijuana,
go.
Colorado. We've seen an increase in criminal
Skewed
filings for marijuana
fucking
increase in
driving
Colorado
numbers
from
again.
1 in
Here we
2007
go. She's got
to
nothing.
40 in 2015.
She's got nothing.
And there seems to be a consensus among law
Bullshit.
enforcement that unless
Rocky
we see
Mountain
uniform
fucking
change
drug
across
task
the United
force?
States,
You mean
there's
the
still
Rocky
going to
Mountain
be
Drug
a
Task
place
Force,
for the
bitch?
black market to sell to out
I
of
got
state.
your
And we
number.
expect to see that in California. Creating a
Bullshit.
commercialized and licensed market in California will not bring everyone into compliance.
That
And people
never
who are acting
stopped us
out of
before.
compliance with the law can still be penalized and go into.
What would be the incentive for people to purchase on the black market versus purchasing legally?
For people out of state, a lack
Well,
of
I'm
legal.
talking about here in California.
Sure. Getting around taxes.
But under the
Taxes,
medical
really?
marijuana, how it's treated in Prop 64, there's no sales taxes that are paid by those who have marijuana card. And there are other incentives for people actually allowing you to grow more if you use medical marijuana.
Don't try to use reason. She
allowing you to smoke
represents
in,
the police.
in places where
There's
people
no
smoke cigarettes.
reason
So
going on there.
If people
Just
don't want to comply with the
propaganda.
recreational
Just
side,
lying
wouldn't they just get a medical
propaganda.
card?
Skewed
They absolutely
numbers.
could, but still having a medical card, you have to pay that 15% excise tax under Prop 64.
Kimberly, how does your business change if Prop 64 passes?
Well, my particular business, a therapeutic alternative.
No,
won't
you go
change.
back to that
However, I
that
most
fucking
likely
driving
will, be
increase
involved in
thing, because
recreational
those are
businesses.
skewed and
But I
incorrect
wanted
numbers.
to speak to
Go
the
back and
social
nail
justice
her on
issues.
that bullshit.
We know
'Cause she
people
is
are in
lying.
jail for cannabis, and even if they aren't in prison,
They, first
these
off,
people,
they don't
when
have
they
a
are
way to
convicted, they're
test for
denied future
impairment.
jobs.
So
They're
how the
denied
hell do
financial
they
aid
know
to go to
what caused
college.
anybody's
It deeply
crashes?
impacts their lives for a nonviolent, victimless crime of having cannabis. So we also need to, spread it out more than just being in prison,
So,
right?
but let me just clarify. So you're saying these are people you're talking about who are selling marijuana, who are in jail. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there are a variety of cannabis-related crimes, and when someone's arrested for cannabis, typically they're charged with multiple crimes, right? So if I'm arrested with cannabis, I'm most likely going to be charged with a variety of crimes.
But
So
then it's not the
they
can.
have to go through the system. They have to pay lawyers. They have to have a lot of stress and time to fight those.
Okay, I'm not quite following. So if there are other charges, then how is the cannabis possession relevant?
It
Well,
opens the
it's
door.
relevant for a number of reasons. It's relevant first for probable cause.
Probable
For,
cause. You bring a
police,
drug dog.
searching
You would
people's
have them
homes
open
based
their
on the
car.
fact they have
You
cannabis,
take their
searching
wallet
cars,
with
searching
their
person.
cash. You get to
We
open their
have seen,
trunk.
by looking at this issue, that there is a disproportionate amount of young men of color
You
who
can
are targeted
have them
by
lay on
police
the
for
ground
this
and put your
specific
But would
finger
this
up their
change under
ass.
64? Because if there's still going to be people who can't get licenses to sell and want to support themselves by selling marijuana, aren't they still exposed to the law?
Well, absolutely. So that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are charged with crimes that they didn't commit, are charged with, are searched by police
I
and
want to
targeted
pause
by
here.
police.
Why is there such a disconnect on this point? D.A. Schubert,
Because she's mixing apples and
Not-
oranges.
but
She's
not
not
just-
talking about simple possession.
not
No,
just her point, but
no.
people on this panel are saying there is a perception that people are in jail because of
Because
marijuana.
they're ill-informed and there's a misrepresentation.
No, they are
of
not
media.
ill-informed, lady.
One of the things that I want to comment
you
on,
are
which was a
fucking
comment
using
about
this to fucking
disproportionality.
line your
If you look
fucking
at Colorado,
pockets.
You see pot shops in communities that are low income. There's a disproportionate number, and
Oh,
for
give
me
me
as
a fucking
as a
break.
parent
That's because you zoned
and as
them
a public
there.
safety official,
You zoned
you're not going to
them
see pot shops
there.
in Arden Oaks,
You
Sacramento.
zoned
You're going to see pot
them
shops in
there
areas
with
that
local
communities want to
controls.
thrive in.
Remember
Where we
local
want
controls?
jobs. We want
You
kids to thrive and
zoned
claim their
them
neighborhoods.
there.
Instead, what they're going to be
You
doing is
rich
walking past liquor
motherfuckers
stores
in San
and pot shops. There are
Diego
twice as
and
many
Ventura
pot shops
County
in Colorado
zoned
as there
those
are
But
fucking
is-
pot
but
shops
could part of
to
that be,
poor
please,
areas
audience members, you'll have a chance later.
yourselves.
Please don't interrupt. But could this be because there is a demand in those communities? This gives a controlled environment at a pot shop as opposed to people selling on the street. Could there be an advantage to that?
I'm not What I'm saying is
Up
that's
you-
what's
up,
happening in
you-
Colorado. I want every
Up you
community in Sacramento to thrive.
That's right.
And I'm going to go back to the same question. What, other than money, which this initiative is supported by private industry, not
Oh,
government
listen
entities
to
that's
this.
looking out for public
Now they're
policy
going to cry
and
about
public
how
health.
their pocketbooks
What
are
is the
getting
good
picked
public
We're
policy?
going to
because
take
they're
a
so
break.
used
We'll
to being able
continue
to
our
get money
conversation
from
from the
this.
Guild Theater in Sacramento.
Now she can cry about
As
how they
California
can't make
counts
money off
our
this if it's
statewide
legalized.
program
Somebody
looking at
else will.
Proposition 64, legalizing marijuana. You hear the passion of our panelists. We'll continue with our conversation right after this.
Man, these lions.
This is a special broadcast of California Counts, a collaboration of public radio stations across the state. We're bringing you comprehensive coverage of the 2016 election and California's role in it all. We've been talking in quite a lively and boisterous way about the pros and cons of legalizing marijuana in California for recreational use by adults. It's an issue voters will decide this fall when Proposition 64, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, appears on the ballot. Rich Madich wants to, let's address where we left off, but I think there have been a couple comments along the way. Rich is an attorney, helped draft the language for Prop 64. So what to you is the biggest misconception you've heard?
The
Well, I
driving
think, just
accidents
taking
in
a step back, I think
Colorado.
we have heard, and we've heard this over the years, that while we have tremendous respect for law enforcement, for DA Schubert, the fact is they have traditionally opposed these types of
Yeah,
efforts.
thank you,
And so
because
to
they're
me, the real
prohibitionists
question is,
that
do we
bank off of
perpetuate a
this.
system that allows today kids to access marijuana
Boom.
by drug dealers who aren't being regulated? They're accessing
And then they get
products
to bust
that aren't
them,
being
put
tested.
anklets on
And
them.
so the question is, do we perpetuate a system that does that, or do we try something new?
Is
Now, with
their
respect,
opposition unfounded to you?
their
Hell
opposition is
yeah!
completely unfounded to me, and I just want to emphasize
Fucking
the
lying
effect on
fucking
law enforcement. DA
shits is
Schubert
what they
has
are.
said that there would essentially be no effect on law enforcement, that we're not solving a problem. But the legislative analyst is the state entity charged with determining what the fiscal effects of this initiative would be. They're nonpartisan. They have said tens of millions of dollars in annual savings. That's a fact. You can read it in the ballot pamphlet.
But I think that's some of her point, is it is about money.
But
Yeah,
it's not
money,
about
they're
money.
not
This
gonna
is-
get
this is-
any more
this is
from
not about money.
arrests.
This is about
So they
creating a
cry.
safe, regulated, controlled environment. Look,
I wouldn't
people
be
are
able to
using
steal your
marijuana
money.
today. Adults are using marijuana today. Children are accessing marijuana from drug dealers who are selling
don't
them
care
products
about that.
aren't being
They
tested.
care
They
about
aren't
their
ID. Obviously,
pocketbooks,
they aren't
their
checking for
police
ID. The kids
pocketbook.
aren't getting a hold of these products. We need a different system to protect the kids. We need a different system to protect the adults that want to use it in a responsible fashion. And we're using the same regulatory structure that the governor and a bipartisan support in our state legislature have approved.
Rich, if there wasn't a $1 billion analysis by the LAO's office on Prop 64, would you have even written it? Would you be working as hard as you are to legalize?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. This is look,
And have been
again,
for 30
people
years.
are using it is a ubiquitous problem today. We need a new approach to it. The money, there will be, just like there is on the medical side,
No,
there
it's
is
these
going
lying
to be a business
bitches.
aspect. to it.
Lying
But this
bitches
is being
should
driven
get
by folks who are
stitches.
concerned about protecting kids, and
Especially
doing
when
right
they're
by them.
wearing
Ron
a
Marcus,
badge.
California Police Chief
They need to
Association, will
get their
respond to
dick
that.
smacked.
Sure, I completely agree. I think that law enforcement, though, our concerns are not unfounded. I think we have 332
bullshit.
police chiefs in California who are on the dance floors of their community who have significant concerns with Prop 64.
Oh,
And
yeah,
these are the same
because you're
332
afraid it's going
police
to take
chiefs
money out of
that
your pocket.
co-sponsored the first consensus medical marijuana regulatory bill in California, SB 1262 in 2014,
Yawn.
and continued those efforts last year as a co-sponsor of AB 266.
Boring.
So we're not a just say no group.
Yes, you
But we are
are.
very concerned with the details of regulating medical marijuana.
No, you're not.
And we don't agree that this builds off of the consensus legislation from last year.
Does your
Because
group,
it takes from
looking
your
at what's happened in
pocketbook.
Colorado, watching other states, think
Done.
that other states have a
Give
better
me another
model,
one.
or do you think all
She's
the
like a
models are
tasty
defective?
fucking piece of candy.
Well, we think California has a
Bring
great
her
model
to me.
under the bill signed by the governor last year.
For just medical marijuana.
For medical marijuana and a platform to discuss adult use.
platform
Let's listen to another
on, come
question
on,
from one
girly.
of our listeners.
My name is Derek. I currently
to
live
me.
in New Mexico. I'm a
I
former
will eat
resident
you.
of California.
You're a fucking lying
My question is, what would be the impact on groundwater use And then, yes, one more question. So for those who grow indoors, what impact would that have on California's energy market?
Those questions to me say that people are coming at this issue from so many different angles. So Kimberly Carlisle,
They're looking for
as a
anything
cultivator,
to
you
bring
also
it
sit on the
down.
board of the California Growers
Grasping
Association.
of straws
So why don't
is
you take that
occurring.
question about groundwater?
Well, absolutely. So, cultivators are regulated by a number of agencies under MCRSA and will also be regulated by a number of agencies under Proposition 64. Local governments will also regulate them, such as the City of Sacramento is asking to see energy efficiency plans and water recirculation plans. Indoor cultivations actually recirculate about 75% of their water and pull it directly back out of the air and reuse it. And we also, with solar panels and using energy off the at off times, we actually have a number of ways that we conserve energy. Cities and counties will actually regulate where these
Plants
dispensaries
grow
and where these
outside.
cultivations are. So they won't just show up
Generally.
anywhere. Every city and county will have their say, and so will the communities. But they are highly regulated, and as an industry, we do care about the environment, and we will have a number of laws that protect our environment.
Plus,
Lauren
the
Lefkowitz,
idea that
your thoughts
marijuana
on
is
this,
going to take
because
more
we
than
just
the
heard
almond
local
industry in
regulations that can go
California or
above and beyond
avocados.
what
Please.
Prop 64 calls
Please
for.
stop.
How far do you think, how much latitude are cities going to have under this?
Sure, and to clarify, that authority exists under the medical marijuana laws as well. One of the differences we see under current law is that locals can ban indoor personal cultivation of cannabis. And under Prop 64, there's a prohibition on locals banning 6 plants per residence of cannabis.
Tee-hee.
And there are questions about the water use and electricity use if we do have private residences being used to cultivate these 6 plants per residence.
6 plants would be enough to pose a drain on power?
Bingo.
I think so. If you look at the current estimates of
Laughter.
6 gallons
Because
of water
you
per
deserve
plant, which is
it.
up for debate, and you look at the
Oh
amount
no!
of electricity
Apparently,
per
growing
plant,
6
which
plants
can
in your
be
house is going to cause
estimated
fires
as up to 19
and
refrigerators
whirlwinds
running.
and the
Can
wrath
I
of
give a couple?
God.
Yeah, Rich, then Peter. Yeah.
The answer to that concern then is that we actually do allow local governments to impose regulations to regulate how indoor personal grows are occurring. So if they want to limit the amount
My
of water
town's
use, the
regulated,
electrical use, if
and
they
they
want to
ban
require
dispensaries.
somebody
What's your
to
problem?
install certain types of electrical sockets to prevent fires, for example, local governments retain the authority to do that. So to the extent that's a concern, we actually provide a solution.
It would still seem, though, since you got the 6 plant guarantee, that could open up the door for legal challenges of cities that make it difficult to grow 6 plants.
Well, again, I think the initiative is pretty clear. You can't ban it outright, but you can regulate it. So as long as you're not making it completely impossible, you can certainly
Peter
regulate it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to jump in free of politics. I think it is amazing to comprehend
I know.
what a massive sector of the economy this is in California, regardless about how you feel about the issue. You look at a UCLA study from 2011, estimated that 3% of all California's electrical use was from marijuana growing, from indoor growing. You look at communities like Humboldt and Mendocino, obviously marijuana growing hotbeds. In 2007, statistics showed that in Mendocino County,
This is why
per
the
capita
police are
electrical
getting
use
sidelined.
went up by 4
Because
times
this
the
is
state
about
average since the
industry
passage
and
of Proposition
something
215.
much
In
larger
Humboldt, it was
than
6
just
times the state
criminal
average.
behavior.
So there was an incredible
And the
footprint
police
to this.
start
And
to
we
have less and less to do
enormous
with the
issues
shit,
with
and they
water
look
use, although there are
clownish
widely
sitting on the
disparate
stage
and
having anything to
conflicting
say
figures on how
about
much.
medicine
A
or
figure thrown out, for
industry.
example, 6
Their
gallons
job
per
is to be in a
plant.
patrol
Well, as many in the
car
audience know,
cruising the
marijuana
streets.
is grown in umpteen
Now they're
different
getting a little
ways,
too
from
big for their
outdoor plants, which
britches.
could be the size of citrus trees, to very small indoor plants. Some of the smaller indoor plants may produce a few ounces per cycle. Some of the outdoor plants could produce 5, 6, 7 pounds in extreme cases. In between, you have these light deprivation greenhouses that produce a much more moderate levels. So it's very difficult to calculate, but there was enormous impact on electrical use, on water use, and if you look at the
This was
outdoor growth,
non-political.
particularly in
Remember, he
environmentally
was coming
sensitive
in on the
areas, you have issues like
non-political side.
grading and sediment and so forth. So what California is attempting to do, and with the state regulations signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown, and now with the legalization initiative, has never been tried in any other state in the country,
Like
including Colorado
America,
and places
when America
like that.
was never
because
tried.
California is pushing towards a wide open cannabis economy in which anybody who wants to
What the
grow
hell does wide
marijuana
open
can
mean?
conceivably access the market. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to. They're not going to be logistically able to or be able to obtain local permits. But what we're doing is far beyond what has ever been contemplated or undertaken in any state. And it is a major, major effort. It's already requiring enormous layers of regulation by the government. And it is an unfolding experiment. At the same time,
This is a special broadcast of California Counts, a collaboration of public radio stations across the state. We're bringing you comprehensive coverage of the 2016 election and California's role in it all. We've been talking in quite a lively and boisterous way about the pros and cons of legalizing marijuana in California for recreational use by adults. It's an issue voters will decide this fall when Proposition 64, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, appears on the ballot. Rich Madich wants to, let's address where we left off, but I think there have been a couple comments along the way. Rich is an attorney, helped draft the language for Prop 64. So what to you is the biggest misconception you've heard?
The
Well, I
driving
think, just
accidents
taking
in
a step back, I think
Colorado.
we have heard, and we've heard this over the years, that while we have tremendous respect for law enforcement, for DA Schubert, the fact is they have traditionally opposed these types of
Yeah,
efforts.
thank you,
And so
because
to
they're
me, the
prohibitionists
real question is,
that
do we
bank off of
perpetuate a
this.
system that allows today kids to access marijuana
Boom.
by drug dealers who aren't being regulated? They're accessing
And then they get
products
to bust
that aren't
them,
being
put
tested.
anklets on
And
them.
so the question is, do we perpetuate a system that does that, or do we try something new?
Is
Now, with
their
respect,
opposition unfounded to you?
their
Hell
opposition is
yeah!
completely unfounded to me, and I just want to emphasize
Fucking
the
lying
effect on
fucking
law enforcement. DA
shits is
Schubert
what they
has
are.
said that there would essentially be no effect on law enforcement, that we're not solving a problem. But the legislative analyst is the state entity charged with determining what the fiscal effects of this initiative would be. They're nonpartisan. They have said tens of millions of dollars in annual savings. That's a fact. You can read it in the ballot pamphlet.
But I think that's some of her point, is it is about money.
But
Yeah,
it's not
money,
about
they're
money.
not
This
gonna
is-
get
this is-
any more
this is
from
not about money.
arrests.
This is about
So they
creating
cry.
a safe, regulated, controlled environment. Look,
I wouldn't
people
be
are
able to
using
steal your
marijuana
money.
today. Adults are using marijuana today. Children are accessing marijuana from drug dealers who are selling them
care
products
about that.
aren't being
They
tested.
care
They
about
aren't
their
ID. Obviously,
pocketbooks,
they aren't
their
checking for
police
ID. The kids
pocketbook.
aren't getting a hold of these products. We need a different system to protect the kids. We need a different system to protect the adults that want to use it in a responsible fashion. And we're using the same regulatory structure that the governor and a bipartisan support in our state legislature have approved.
Rich, if there wasn't a $1 billion analysis by the LAO's office on Prop 64, would you have even written it? Would you be working as hard as you are to legalize?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. This is look,
And have been
again,
for 30
people
years.
are using it is a ubiquitous problem today. We need a new approach to it. The money, there will be, just like there is on the medical side,
No,
there
it's
is
these
going
lying
to be a business
bitches.
aspect. to it.
Lying
But this
bitches
is being
should
driven
get
by folks who are
stitches.
concerned about protecting kids, and
Especially
doing
when
right
they're
by them.
wearing
Ron
a
Marcus,
badge.
California Police Chief
They need to
Association,
get
wants
their
respond to
dick
that.
smacked.
Sure, I completely agree. I think that law enforcement, though, our concerns are not unfounded. I think we have 332
bullshit.
police chiefs in California who are on the dance floors of their community who have significant concerns with Prop 64.
Oh,
And
yeah,
these are the same
because you're
332
afraid it's going
police
to take
chiefs
money out of
that
your pocket.
co-sponsored the first consensus medical marijuana regulatory bill in California, SB 1262 in 2014,
Yawn.
and continued those efforts last year as a co-sponsor of AB 266.
Boring.
So we're not a just say no group.
Yes, you
But we are
are.
very concerned with the details of regulating medical marijuana.
No, you're not.
And we don't agree that this builds off of the consensus legislation from last year.
Does
Because
your
it
group,
takes from
looking
your
at what's happening in
pocketbook.
Colorado, watching other states, think
Done.
that other states have a
Give
better
me another
model,
one.
or do you think all
She's
the
like a
models are
tasty
defective?
fucking piece of candy.
Well, we think California has a
Bring
great
her
model
to me.
under the bill signed by the governor last year.
For just medical marijuana?
For medical marijuana, and a platform to discuss adult use.
Let's listen to another question from one
girly.
of our listeners.
My name is Derek. I currently live in New Mexico. I'm a
I
former
will eat
resident
you.
of California.
You're a fucking
My
lying
question is, what would be the impact on groundwater use? And then, yes, one more question. So for those who grow indoors, what impact would that have on California's energy market?
Those questions to me say that people are coming at this issue from so many different angles. So Kimberly Carlisle,
They're looking for
as a
anything
cultivator,
to
you
bring
also
it
sit on the
down.
board of the California Growers
Grasping
Association.
of straws
So why don't
is
you take that
occurring.
question about groundwater?
Well, absolutely. So, cultivators are regulated by a number of agencies under MCRSA and will also be regulated by a number of agencies under Proposition 64. Local governments will also regulate them, such as the City of Sacramento is asking to see energy efficiency plans and water recirculation plans. Indoor cultivations actually recirculate about 75% of their water and pull it directly back out of the air and reuse it. And we also, with solar panels and using energy off the at off times, we actually have a number of ways that we conserve energy. Cities and counties will actually regulate where these
Plants
dispensaries
grow
and where these
outside.
cultivations are. So they won't just show up
Generally.
anywhere. Every city and county will have their say, and so will the communities. But they are highly regulated, and as an industry, we do care about the environment, and we will have a number of laws that protect our environment.
Plus,
Lauren
the
Michaels,
idea that
your thoughts
marijuana
on
is
this,
going to take
because
more
we
than
just
the
heard
almond
local
industry in
regulations that can go
California or
above and beyond
avocados.
what Prop
Please.
64 calls
Please
for.
stop.
How far do you think, how much latitude are cities going to have under this?
Sure, and to clarify, that authority exists under the medical marijuana laws as well. One of the differences we see under current law is that locals can ban indoor personal cultivation of cannabis. And under Prop 64, there's a prohibition on locals banning 6 plants per residence of cannabis.
Tee-hee.
And there are questions about the water use and electricity use if we do have private residences being used to cultivate these 6 plants per residence.
6 plants would be enough to pose a drain on power?
Bingo.
I think so. If you look at the current estimates of
Laughter.
6 gallons
Because
of water
you
per
deserve
plant, which
it.
is up for debate, and you look at the
Oh
amount
no!
of liquid
Apparently,
per
growing
plant,
6
which
plants
can
in your
be
house is going to cause
estimated
fires
as up to 19
and
refrigerators
whirlwinds
running.
and the
Can
wrath
I
of
give a couple?
God.
Yeah, Rich, then Peter. Yeah.
The answer to that concern then is that we actually do allow local governments to impose regulations to regulate how indoor personal grows are occurring. So if they want to limit the amount
My
of water
town's
use, the
regulated,
electrical use, if
and
they
they
want to
ban
require
dispensaries.
somebody
What's your
to
problem?
install certain types of electrical sockets to prevent fires, for example, local governments retain the authority to do that. So to the extent that's a concern, we actually provide a solution.
It would still seem, though, since you got the 6 plant guarantee, that could open up the door for legal challenges of cities that make it difficult to grow 6 plants.
Well, again, I think the initiative is pretty clear. You can't ban it outright, but you can regulate it. So as long as you're not making it completely impossible, you can certainly
Peter
regulate it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to jump in free of politics. I think it is amazing to comprehend
I know.
what a massive sector of the economy this is in California, regardless about how you feel about the issue. You look at a UCLA study from 2011, estimated that 3% of all California's electrical use was from marijuana growing, from indoor growing. You look at communities like Humboldt and Mendocino, obviously marijuana growing hotbeds. In 2007, statistics showed that in Mendocino County,
This is why
per
the
capita
police are
electrical
getting
use
sidelined.
went up by 4
Because
times the
this is
state
about
average since the
industry
passage
and
of
economy,
Proposition
something
215,
much
and
larger
Humboldt it was
than
6
just
times the state
criminal
average.
behavior.
So there was an incredible
And the
footprint
police
to this.
start
And
to
we
have less and less to do
enormous
with
issues
shit,
with
and they
water
look
use, although there are
clownish
widely
sitting on the
disparate
stage
and
having anything to
conflicting
say
figures on how
about
much.
medicine
A
or
figure thrown out,
industry.
for example, 6
Their
gallons
job
per
is to be in a
plant. Well,
patrol
as many in the
car
audience know,
cruising the
marijuana
street.
is grown in umpteen
Now they're
different
getting a little
ways,
too
from
big for their
outdoor plants, which
britches.
could be the size of citrus trees, to very small indoor plants. Some of the smaller indoor plants may produce a few ounces per cycle. Some of the outdoor plants can produce 5, 6, 7 pounds in extreme cases. In between, you have these light deprivation greenhouses that produce a much more moderate levels. So it's very difficult to calculate, but there was enormous impact on electrical use, on water use, and if you look at the
This was
outdoor growth,
non-political.
particularly in
Remember, he
environmentally
was coming
sensitive
in on the
areas, you have issues like
non-political side.
grading and sediment and so forth. So what California is attempting to do, and with the state regulations signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown, and now with the legalization initiative, has never been tried in any other state in the country,
Like
including
America,
Colorado, places
when America
like that.
was never
Because
tried.
California is pushing towards a wide open cannabis economy in which anybody who wants to
What the
grow
hell does wide
marijuana
open
can
mean?
conceivably access the market. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to. There's not going to be logistically able to or be able to obtain local permits. But what we're doing is far beyond what has ever been contemplated or undertaken in any state. And it is a major, major effort. It's already requiring enormous layers of regulation by the government. And it is an unfolding experiment. At the same time,
Now, the thing that upset me the most about that whole last video was these arguments about drug driving. That has been completely debunked. And so I'm going to now read to you an old article about how this is based on just flawed, data. Go back here. Drug driving claim based on flawed data. It is a half-truth that yes, there was an increase in car crashes, but it didn't have to do with marijuana. So I'll read this to you. Ugh. PolitiFact.com. See, when Colorado eased its medical marijuana laws, fatal accidents involving pot-using drivers soared, while overall traffic fatalities decreased. Charles Chuck Spohas on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014, in a joint legislative hearing. Drug driving claims based on flawed data. Cautions about abound from opponents and supporters alike in Georgia's debate about whether to legalize medical marijuana. The most likely measure to pass in a bill that gained traction last year and is being reintroduced this year by State Representative Alan Peake R. McCon to allow cannabis oil for treatment of certain seizure disorders and other health problems. But a second bill to allow vaporized edibles and smokable marijuana for medical use has prompted new claims about safety problems and other unintended consequences. Chuck Spahos, executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, told a joint legislative committee that no district attorney in the state will prosecute those caught with cannabis oil. But he warned lawmakers about smokable marijuana, saying that Colorado has seen the number of traffic fatalities go up among drivers who test positive for marijuana. At the same time, that state's overall traffic fatality rate declined. Colorado has seen a decrease in traffic fatalities by 14.8% between 2007 and 2012, Suppose said. But it's up 100% for operators who tested positive for marijuana. We don't want to stand in the way of this oil being available, he said. This is how bad it's going to be if we let it go too far. So did medical marijuana really lead to such a dramatic uptick in stoned driving or drivers? PolitiFact Georgia decided to check it out. First, it's important to understand Colorado's history on this issue. Voters there approved medical marijuana in its smokable form in the year 2000. But commercialization of the drug did not really begin until 2009, when federal officials announced they would not seek prosecution of those complying with state medical marijuana laws. Voters approved recreational use of the drug last year. So, statistics SPOA referenced covered just before the rapid growth of marijuana's dispensaries, but before recreational use was permitted. He cited an August 2014 report from the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Traffic area as his source. Yes, the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Traffic area. We all know it well, stoners. The same group of police officers that are moonlighting by going across the country to different states and telling them about all the horrors that are supposedly happening in Colorado, and yet these horrors are not actually happening. It's the most bizarre piece of propaganda I've ever seen a government agency do. It's really bizarre. The report is unequivocal. The exact figures cited by SPOA are found in the findings under the report's section for impaired driving. A chart breaks it down. The actual numbers. Statewide fatalities. 2007, 554. Operators tested positive, 39. Okay, 2008, 548. 43 tested positive. 2009, 465. 47 tested positive. 450, 49 tested positive. 447. In 2011, 63 tested positive. In 2012, 472, 78 tested positive. Based on this report, SPOA's claims appear accurate. However, there are several complications with the data. No one from the RMHIDTA responded to requests for comment. To report cites the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration and its own research for its data. But when contacted, a spokesman for the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration referred us back to the Colorado Department of Transportation for the figures, saying each state reports different information. No federal data could confirm the report's claims. Meanwhile, the statistics from Colorado's DOT don't match the RMHIDTA report. The DOT figures are, let's see, 2007, 554, 26. Let's go all the way down. In 2012, 474, only 36 tested positive, not the whopping 78 that the other seems to claim. Yes, very instructive. The DOT figures confirm on an overall decrease in traffic fatalities, but show about a 39% increase for drivers who tested positive for marijuana. That's still an increase, but hardly a 100% jump. More importantly, Colorado DOT spokesman Amy Ford said the agency is cautious to use their own data to make any pronouncements. That's because the data is incomplete. Not every driver in a fatal crash is tested for drugs. Colorado law long allowed a conviction based on just drunken driving at 0.08% blood alcohol level, so some agencies never bothered with any additional testing. The state only began tracking drug driving high this last year. So there is no historical data to compare, Ford said. We do not draw an incredible amount of conclusions from that data, she said. The federal data for all states likewise focuses on drunken, not drug driving. Several studies show that marijuana can slow reaction time and similarly impair drivers in much the same way as alcohol does. One study found that dead drivers were 3 times more likely to test positive for cannabis in 2010 when compared to those who died in 1999. But the marijuana will show up longer in blood work and does not appear to increase the chances of a fatal accident as much as booze. according to a 2013 study by researchers at Columbia University. Yes, I would like to remind you the police have said over and over again that they do not have a test to see if you're impaired at the moment. So how do they know that the marijuana in these people's systems led to their accident? So if Georgia were to legalize smoking marijuana, let's see. Oh, but the marijuana will show up longer in their blood, and study researcher at Columbia University. Okay. So if Georgia were to legalize smoking marijuana, does that mean there would be a rash of high drivers risking their safety and that of others? Colorado's research indicates specific drivers, essentially young men, are more likely to drive high when the drug is legal. The state has launched a public awareness campaign to the new law that allows police to cite those motorists for driving under the influence, Ford said. In other words, there are clear dangers to driving under the influence of marijuana, much as there are for driving intoxicated. But while a regional report claims that those risks have led to 100% increase in fatal crashes where the drivers tested positive for cannabis, officials state figures contradict those figures. Excuse me. SPOA was citing that published report, but the report and figures surrounding the topic are flawed. We rate this claim a half-truth. And that seems to be what prohibitionists have right now. Lies, half-truths, and damnable statistics. So as to the other claim that these people made that marijuana arrests don't happen in California, that they don't arrest people for marijuana in California. There's no one arrested for simple possession. That's bullshit. They use marijuana like a crowbar to get into your life. So for probable cause, they'll bring a drug dog around. I smell marijuana. Oh, now open your wallet. Pull your pants down. I'm going to do a cavity search right here on the side of the road. Cavity search. You know. So here is California arrested nearly 500,000 people for pot over the past decade. TheJournal.com. California arrested nearly 500,000 people for pot over the past decade. California residents will decide whether to fully legalize the recreational use of marijuana this November in a vote that's likely to have a major influence on marijuana policy in other states, regardless of which way it goes. One of the most nuanced arguments against legalization in California is that for all intents and purpose, marijuana is already legal. Therefore, people who want to get it, the state's medical marijuana law, Prop 215, enacted in 1996, is written broadly enough that patients can receive a physician recommendation to take marijuana for just about any ailment. The state, furthermore, decriminalized the possession of small amounts of marijuana in 2011, making possession of up to an ounce of the drug a minor infraction akin to a parking ticket. Since Prop 215, the Compassionate Use Act was enacted in 1996, California has devolved into a de facto legalization, writing citizens against legalizing marijuana. One of the more strident voices against California legalization measure. A recent op-ed in the San Diego Union Tribune argues that California no longer faces the issue of teens and young people getting put in jail for minor marijuana possession, and we haven't for decades. But a new report from the Drug Policy Alliance, a group that favors liberalizing drug laws, shows that far from de facto legalization, tens of thousands of Californians are still getting arrested for marijuana infractions each year. The report finds that between 2006 and 2015, there were nearly 500,000 marijuana arrests in California, citing data from the California Department of Justice. It further finds that while misdemeanor arrests plummeted following the passage of marijuana decriminalization in 2011, thousands of people are still arrested on marijuana misdemeanors each year, and thousands more arrested for marijuana felonies. Following decriminalization in 2011, misdemeanor arrests dropped precipitously, but there are still a few thousand minor arrests. Misdemeanor arrests. Blech, Kelly Reed. Okay. For things like possession of marijuana concentrates, keeping quantities of marijuana greater than an ounce, or giving marijuana away to others. As you might expect, felony arrests have been more constant over the same period. Growing pot for possessing it with intent to sell outside of the existing medical framework have always qualified as felonies. Under the proposed legal regulation on the ballot in November, possessing concentrates and giving away small quantities of weed would be fully legal, and as would growing up to 6 marijuana plants at home. And sale of the plant would be legalized and taxed in a manner similar to the market currently in Colorado. Before that, the report finds sharp racial disparities in marijuana arrests, similar to what other reports have shown nationally. Studies have shown that blacks and whites use and sell marijuana at similar rates. But in California, blacks are roughly 4 times more likely to be arrested for any marijuana offense than whites are, according to the state's arrest data. So, boom, 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 truth came in the room, Sorry, but the prosecutor and the representative for the police are just, like I said, they're filled with lies, damnable lies, half-truths, and statistics that are flawed. And always in the background is this, what about the children? What about the children? Constantly, as like a droning sound constantly in the background. What about those children that you're allowing to be taken advantage of by a black market? What about them? The ones that aren't able to get alcohol, but are able to get weed. Yeah, what about those children? So things are going very well in California, and everybody is pretty much on board, particularly since the DEA ruled that they're just going to be obnoxious shits about everything. Suddenly the growers are certainly looking at legalization as something much more viable, whereas before they were like, oh, well, maybe I don't want to be taxed too high, or there's too many fiery hoops to jump through. It's better than the forest fire that the DEA would have you run through. So it's the lesser of two evils. So things are going really well here. All right, so that's the end of my show for today. You stay high and goodbye. And now that I've had the dentist thing over with, and we got her blinds up at her house. Now that all that's over with, we could go back to our lives. Oh, and Tiki is being such a rotten little bitch. He bit the shit out of Kurt this morning because he's just like flying up in his face and everything and being territorial. So he's in timeout in his cage right now till he calms down. Otherwise, he's going to get swatted with a tennis racket because he's just like, or like next week he's going to go get his little wings clipped and, he'll get his bill filed down and stuff, and that'll help make him a little less aggressive. But he's just been a snot the last couple of days. Oh my God. He just needs to behave. All right. So I'll see you tomorrow.
I want to welcome Tom Angel, founder of Marijuana Majority. Tom, you've been quoted quite a bit lately after the FDA decided it would not reclassify marijuana, citing that it has no currently accepted medical use in treatment. That doesn't make any sense.
It does not indeed make any sense. And I think most Americans and even most policymakers are aware of that. Marijuana has numerous proven medical benefits. It can stimulate the appetite for people dealing with cancer or HIV/AIDS. It's a great pain reliever. It can help military veterans deal with PTSD. And it shows great promise to help people with severe seizure disorders. And it can alleviate the symptoms of multiple sclerosis, which is something I've seen in my own mother.
Oh, wow.
And, and polls now show that an overwhelming majority of Americans support medical marijuana. We have half the states with medical marijuana policies on the books right now. And the FDA, DEA denial of marijuana's well-known medical benefits shows just how out of touch federal law.
Why would they say that? I mean, the proof is there. Is it not? Why would the FDA be taking this stance?
It's tough to say. I think you'd really have to ask them to justify their position. I certainly can't think of any good reasons why they continue to deny science and overwhelming public opinion.
Now, it's Schedule 1 means it's the most dangerous substance. Schedule 2 wouldn't be great either, would it? I mean, then there would be like methadone, oxycodone. Where should marijuana be?
Well, a lot of us who've been working in the legalization movement for some time would like to see marijuana removed from the Controlled Substances Act altogether and to simply allow states to set their own marijuana policies without federal interference. You're right. Moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 wouldn't change a whole lot. It would change a couple of technical things. For example, it would stop the U.S. Postal Service from threatening publishers who mail newspapers containing marijuana ads, and it would change a few other things. And as you go further down the list from Schedule 1 to Schedule 5, it has more benefits, but most of us just think remove it from the Controlled Substances Act altogether, just like alcohol and tobacco.